Hey guys, it's Lina, and today I'm going to be doing a very different video. I have been super into murder cases recently. I nonstop watch them. My biggest influence on actually researching and doing this video is this girl on YouTube. Her name is Bella. I'll link her in the description. She's amazing and she puts so much time and effort, and today I see like how much time and effort she actually put into it, because I was researching for probably 2 or 3 hours, which is nothing for compared to the information that she has and, you know, everything that she learns. This case is so insane because I live 15 minutes away from where this actually happened. And that's why the case interests me so much, because my mom had told me about it a few years ago and I could not stop thinking about it and wanting to research it, so I finally did. This case is about a murder of a woman named Krabs, who was murdered by her husband, Richard Krabs. Krabs was born in Denmark on July 7th, 1947. And she was known to be such an outgoing, beautiful young girl who learned very quickly. She really excelled in school. She had the ability to pick up on languages really quickly. She learned French and English and was able to understand other languages like German and Swedish and Norwegian. And everyone was always so impressed by this. She had friends. After Helly graduated high school, she went to a college in England. And by the age of 20, every man described her as beautiful and head-turning, and everyone wanted her. Pan Am Airways was looking for a stewardess, which Helly took the job. And while waiting for one of her flights, she had ended up meeting her future husband, Richard Krabs, who was 31 at the time. Richard Krabs was born in New York City on December 20th, 1937. He was one of 3 children. He had 2 older sisters. Although Richard attended a private school, he did not excel. He actually hated going to school. He was really bad at it, bad at focusing and all of that. Once he graduated, he tried to go to college, but dropped out of nowhere and joined the Marines. While in the Marines, he gravitated towards flying planes. He started flying military helicopters and soon got his pilot license and was looking for a higher paying salary job. As a pilot though, he had lots of trouble finding jobs until he finally found one at Eastern. Although as a pilot he had a busy schedule, Krabs did not stop socializing. He was probably with 10 different women at a time. And even when he met Helly, he was actually engaged to another woman, but Helly did not care and continued to see him anyways. Most of Helly's friends did not like Richard at all. They said that he seemed very hostile and angry, and they didn't understand why she wanted to be with him, considering she was so beautiful and she could have any man that she wanted. In 1975, Helly became pregnant with Richard's son, and they soon got married later in that year in November and went on to have 2 more children, Thomas and Christina Krabs. In the year after, they had moved to Newtown, Connecticut and had bought a house there. After she had recovered from her last pregnancy with Christina, she had went back to her job as a stewardess, and Richard continued his job as a pilot, which soon became a problem because their schedules were so busy there was no one to look after the children. They hired 19-year-old Dawn Marie Thomas. Richard managed the finances of the house, and honestly, he spent money like he was the richest man in the world. He bought things that he didn't even need, that weren't necessary, things that he wanted, even sometimes things that he didn't even end up using. But his favorite passion was collecting guns. Helly had appeared in public with bruises on her face quite often, and this struck as something really abusive when her friends started to see that she would always have bruises, and she would complain about how he was always yelling. Her friend actually reported the bruises and the abuse to the police. After all 3 children were born, Richard would often leave without saying anything. He would come in, pack his bags, and just leave for days on end and come back and never even said where he went, even after being gone without any contact for days straight with his family. Krabs actually became a voluntary police officer for the Newtown, Connecticut Police Department, but since he wasn't getting paid there, he loved it so much. He was there even when he wasn't on duty. He would honestly break a lot of rules. He would respond to police calls without authorization, and even though he did all these things, he ended up getting hired in Southbury as a paid cop. So now that we're done with the background information, we're going to get into the case. On the 18th of November 1986, Helly had just landed back home from a flight in Germany. Her and two other stewardesses drove to her house and they dropped her off, and this was the last time anyone had ever seen her alive again. Right before her disappearance, Helly had actually discovered that she believed that Richard was cheating on her, which he had previously. So she hired a private detective who later came to her with picture evidence of him cheating. And then she filed for divorce, and she had told her lawyer that if anything had ever happened to her, that it was not a mistake, that it was not coincidence, that it was Richard. She also expressed to her lawyer that Richard had a lot of guns. In court, she decided to file a no-fault divorce instead of filing it for adultery because she was worried about the children and what they would think and what the community would think. On November 19th, Dawn, their maid babysitter, had told detectives that on November 19th, Richard had woke her up at 6 in the morning and said that since the storm that was happening at the time was so bad that he wanted to take her and the 3 children to his sister's house in Westport. Eventually, he dropped the children off at 6:30 a.m. Dawn said that when Richard dropped off the kids, he basically immediately left. Helly never went to the sister's house or never even got into the car or woke up to leave with them. And Richard never ended up coming back at 7 p.m. like he said he would later that day to pick them back up. Later that night, Helly had called Richard and asked where Helly was, and he just replied with, "I don't know." The next day, Dawn had asked where Helly was again, and Richard said that she was in Denmark with her mother because she was sick. This is when Dawn had noticed that pieces of the rug in the house were cut up. Richard had told Dawn that he had spilled kerosene on the rug, and that's why he had to cut it to get it replaced. Soon after Helly had been a missing person, the police automatically were on thinking that Richard had something to do with it. So they took him in, they questioned him, they interviewed him, and they asked him to take a lie detector test, which he did, and he passed. This really threw police and detectives off because they were almost certain that he was at fault for it. But when asked where his wife was, and he said that he didn't know, he was telling the truth. When Helly's old lawyer found out that she was missing, he went straight to detectives to tell them what she had said to him previously. When Kenneth, their lawyer, found out that pieces of the rugs had been cut out, he was determined to find that, went straight to the garbage company who let them into the dump so him and a few other people could search. Eventually, after hours and hours and hours of searching, they found a piece, they tested it for blood, and there was none on it. Since police were still suspicious on Richard, they decided to look through his credit card bill statements, which came out that he had rented a huge outdoor freezer and he had rented out something for $900. And they were thinking, what the hell could he have rented out that was so expensive? On November 17th, the police had written out a warrant to search the Krabs family house, and it was pretty convenient because Krabs and his 3 children were actually in Florida vacationing at the time that they checked the house. While searching his house, they realized that the freezer that he had bought was actually gone and that only an old freezer that he had was still there. And they had taken things like the bed sheets and towels and things that they could test around the house for blood. Dr. Lee had performed tests around the whole house for blood, which came out positive, and they found O positive blood all around the house, which matched Helly's. Later on, the police had found out that the $900 charge was actually for a wood chipper. When asked why he bought the wood chipper, Richard had said that he used it to cut up large quantities of wood, and that's why he needed one so big. A witness named Joseph Hine, who was a utility man in Southbury, said that while he was driving by late at night on Lake Shore, he had seen someone with a U-Haul truck and a wood chipper on the side of the road. Detectives took him, and he pointed out the exact spot that he had seen that. While detectives were searching the surrounding areas where Joseph had said he had seen the wood chipper and the U-Haul truck, they had found several pieces of shredded up mail with Helly's name on it. And this is when they knew they were going to find evidence and that something was not right about his cutting up a lot of wood story. They found numerous strands of blonde hair, bone fragments, plastic, cloth, cotton, and very little wood. Soon detectives found out where he had rented this wood chipper, and they sent it straight to the police station to be tested. Dr. Lee and the detectives, the swim team, were all in Lake Shore, but since it was so cold from the storm, they couldn't stay in there long, but they were looking for maybe more fragments or other things that they could find. Eventually, the swim teams had actually found a chainsaw. The only problem with this is that the serial number was actually ripped and scraped off. It was no longer feasible to use the serial number. Dr. Lee said that this discovery led to 2,660 strains of hair in the wood chipper, 69 pieces of human bones, 5 droplets of human blood, 2 teeth, a fingernail, and a toenail. They finally found Helly. On January 11th, an arrest warrant was issued for Richard Krabs. At 9 p.m., over a dozen police officers went to the Krabs family. They surrounded his home, called him, and told him that they had a warrant for his arrest and that he needed to surrender and come out now. He literally, this man told the police officers to come back in the morning because he doesn't want to deal with it right now, and he'll talk to them later. After several calls, they finally got him to surrender. What the police believe happened is that Richard beat Helly to death in their bedroom, which is why they found drops of her blood in there. And then he had dropped the kids off at his sister's so he could cut up his wife's body with the chainsaw that they found in Lake Shore. He put her remains in the freezer, and then later, when it was dark, then he put her frozen body through the wood chipper, took it to Lake Shore with the U-Haul truck, and then put pieces of wood in an attempt to clean it or to have left wood in there instead of the blood and the guts that were left in there from his dead wife. As he was putting the wood through it, he had thrown the chainsaw he had used to originally cut Helly up and threw it into the water. What he did know is that when he was putting wood through the wood chipper on Lake Shore, that he was shooting pieces, like leftover pieces of his wife around, which they had found blood and pieces of her hair and little slivers of bone. The mail that they found Richard probably didn't know, but Helly had put mail into her like jacket hoodie pocket, and that's why there was so much mail like pieces that they found. Next is the trial. Due to literally everyone in Newtown and surrounding it knowing about this case, to get a fair trial, they had to take him to New London, Connecticut. One of the most damaging pieces of evidence, even though there was dozens and dozens of evidence, was that he had thrown the chainsaw into the lake. During this trial, the jury did not come to a conclusion. So on November 20th, 1989, almost 3 years after she had been murdered, he got a new trial and the jury found him guilty. And he had gotten 99 years in prison. This case was super interesting to me. It's super sad and devastating, and a big thing was that Richard did not care. And that was one of the biggest things that police started to first speculate him with, was that he did not care that his wife was gone whatsoever. He showed no emotion ever at all. And I have one quote from him. When police later asked why he married Helly, Richard replied, "Helly was pregnant. It was too far advanced for a doctor to perform an abortion, and we decided to get married." Alright, bye guys. Thank you for watching. I really hope you enjoyed, and I really hope this wasn't super confusing, because I know I went through it kind of quickly. If you like this, like and subscribe, and maybe I'll do more of these.
I want a Sunday kind of love.